Hi, I'm Paul Beare, and I run a firm of accountants covering legal and corporate services for overseas companies operating in the UK. I have a team of 40, with 2 based in New Zealand and the remainder throughout the UK. Myself, I live between Auckland and London, effectively chasing summer. I'm joined today with Monica Tong, who is a Kiwi now living in London, and Monica works with us focusing on banking solutions for our clients. So Monica, what are the key considerations here for companies looking to set up a business bank account in the UK?
I think the key consideration is that the company structure is very important. So if it's not confirmed at the beginning, then it's incredibly important to have a discussion on whether it's an independent entity, subsidiary of an overseas company, a branch, or the company is directly trading in the UK as an overseas company, because the structure of the company dictates the banking options that they may have in the UK.
Okay. Can you explain the differences then between a high street bank and a fintech option for businesses banking in the UK?
So there are quite a few differences between high street banks and fintech options. Firstly is the regulation and compliance. High street banks are FCA and PRA regulated, and fintechs are FCA and EMI regulated. The requirements that the bank require may be different. The high streets will require UK entity, a UK-based director, and a local trading office. However, fintech requirements on this aspect is relatively loose. Okay. And there are time frame difference. So say, for example, if you want to apply for a high street bank, the time frame may vary from a few months to up to a year. And the fintech options then will be relatively quick, a week or a few weeks. Function-wise, they are slightly different. The traditional high street banks still deal with cash and check. However, because the fintech offerings are all online, so they don't have such functions. And cost-wise, because the fintech options are all structured online and they're relatively cheaper than the high streets operational costs, especially for international businesses making a lot of cross-border transactions. The cost could be as low as 1/5 of the traditional banks, high street banks.
Okay, well, you've touched on timeframes in regard to high street bank accounts, but what are the advantages and disadvantages of using a high street bank for banking in the UK?
So it really depends on the bank's, it really depends on the business's requirements. So say, for example, if they do require, they're sending some staff from overseas to the UK, for example, then they will require a sponsorship license. And at the moment, for the UK Immigration Office, that they require the business to have a high street account to as part of the requirements to sponsor their staff to come to work in the UK. And also there are other advantage similar to the requirement of the regulated bank, is that if you work with local government bodies, sometimes they do require their suppliers to have a high street bank account just to increase their credibility. However, it's not compulsory. Okay,
so just to touch on something that you mentioned, the sponsor license, to have a sponsor license with the Home Office that we offer as a service as well, the application process from end to end. You saying there that the bank account for the application, of which is a requirement, can only be through a high street provider, not a fintech provider, because of the regulatory.
Most of the fintech, there is quite a few. However, again, coming back to the first question, it depends on the company structure. Very few fintech providers do have these offering, but it's very limited.
And it's fair to say, I think, in terms of the complexities of opening a high street account, that typically with our clients, trusts of ownership that we're used to seeing in terms of family or unit trust, they're alien as a concept in the UK. Although you can get them, they're extremely rare. So when an entity with ultimate beneficial ownership has got any trusts at the top of it, that's partly not off-putting for a banker, but it's seen as more work for them. Therefore, there's a reluctance, depending on the banker, of course. All the banks work in different ways, but depending on the banker, and we guide our clients through that process.
Yeah, so in New Zealand and Australia, it's very common to have family trust or investment trust as ultimate shareholding or for protection. It's relatively complicated for the UK banks to identify who the ultimate beneficiary owners are for this sort of structure. Hence why the banks are very reluctant to open accounts, because there's extra work for enhanced KYC and AML risk for them. Therefore, it's very important for us to help our clients is that we put together a proposal with everything clearly outlined, and we provide all the identification, address verification documents, and put in front of the bank to give them a clear picture of the ownership structure. Hence why we can assist our customers to open bank accounts with the required banks.
Okay, with that in mind then, how important is it for a business to have a UK-based bank account when operating in the UK? Could a client simply pay their employees, for example, from New Zealand, for example?
I think it's very crucial for business to have operational accounts in the UK for various reasons. Firstly, it's very convenient to trade with the local clients they have, because most of the clients in the UK don't want to pay an overseas bank account, and also the amount of fees accrued to pay overseas banks. And secondly, if you do want to hire anyone locally, then it's by legal requirement that you have to have a pension set up for the local employees, which means you have a bank account that accepts direct debits, because the pension setup will directly debit your account on a monthly basis to meet that legal requirement. And thirdly, as I said, if you are sending anyone from overseas, then it's required to have a PRA regulated banks in the UK to meet one of the requirements. Okay.
And in terms of banking options for startups versus established businesses when entering the UK market, how do the banking options differ for those two scenarios, say an established versus a startup?
So for established businesses from overseas, it's definitely much easier to prove their track record, to have a more solid foundation as to prove their business model is profitable. So it will be relatively easier to set up a bank account here, and we'll have a wider options. For startup, however, will then require to have a business plan and the background of the founders to then prove to the bank that the business is going to work. However, the banks, because of their risk appetite and the potential profit to attract the banks to be able to open an account for you, you have to prove a bit more.
Okay. And you used to work in banking in Auckland, didn't you? And in Australia as well. Which banks were you working for?
I worked for BNZ for 5 years and BNZBA for 5 years.
Cool, very good. Okay, and on to our final point then. What tips would you give a company looking to ensure a smooth and efficient banking setup process?
So I think before you enter the UK market, it's very beneficial for the company to set up a meeting with us, so we can go through the banking options that they may have, the key features that they require, and the structure of the company will be very important. It goes hand in hand with legal, accounting, and as well as the banking options that the structure may detect. So I think considering the KYC and AML checks is the same amount of supporting documents that you need to require, similar in New Zealand and Australian banks, the ID and the proof of address. However, because of the different banking options that you may have, the level of checks could differ.
Okay, so they could be more enhanced potentially.
Yeah, and especially coming to a trust ownership, there's a lot more work to be done there.
Okay, all right.
So
Did
seeking professional, oh, sorry.
No, go on. Sorry,
so I suggest, yeah, seeking professional help could save a lot of time for businesses coming to the UK. For
sure, and I think it's fair to say that the Kiwis like a we can do it approach, but actually on a completely different time zone on the other side of the world can be problematic. And again, it's those contacts of different banking institutions. And I think we work with something just over 15, or actually it might be closer to 20 different providers, whether it's high street, fintechs or private banks.
That's right.
All right. Did you have anything else to add?
No, that's all. But welcome to book any meetings with us if you intend to trade in the UK. We have a team of 30 specialists in different areas, whether it's banking or accounting, legal. We can all help you from different aspects.
Okay, great. Thank you for listening. And for any further queries, we'll share our contact details shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.